There are probably some things nobody told you about getting a C-section, okay? So I'm here to enlighten you, to help you out a little bit, and kind of give you an idea of what you're in for. All right, I'll be right back. So if you've clicked on this video, chances are you have a good idea of what happens when, you're getting ready to get a C-section, right? How the process is like. You're probably aware that an anesthesiologist will come in and administer anesthesia. They do that through a needle, which they put into your spinal cord. For this process, they usually stress that you have to be still. And, for my sisters out there that don't like needles just like me, I am so sorry. Girl, you got this. I'm standing in solidarity with you. Although it's a pain, you'll get through it. It's really not that bad at all in terms of, pain-wise, it's not that bad, but just like the thought of a needle going inside, you know what I mean? I know it's freakish, but you'll be fine. Another thing is they really want you to curve and arch your back. Our instinct is really to, arch inwards when the needle is going in, because you kind of want to, move away from the pain or the poke or whatever. But it is really in your best interest to keep yourself in that curved position. Trust me. The only new information I have to give with this process really is that it's not abnormal to feel some type of electric sensation, like a shocking sensation. It's happened to me twice already. Like the recent one was, I felt a shockwave down my left leg, and it may want to freak you out. I hope it doesn't freak you out. I mean, I hope it's not a sign of any issues, and I don't think it's a sign of any issues because I never really experienced any issues postpartum or post the surgery. Just to be sure, I think it's a good idea to just let the anesthesiologist know, okay, I felt something, this is what I felt, and then if it's a problem, then they can help out and figure out what to do right there and then. Another thing you're probably familiar with is that you will get numb. After the anesthesia is given to you, they make you lay down, and then you start to lose the feeling from your waist down to your toes. And every once in a while they'll poke you to, see if you can feel it or if you can't, so as time progresses, you become more numb, and once you can't feel the poke, they begin to operate. Now, with being numb and having the anesthesia administered, you're going to be numb from your waist down for 24 hours. Usually, it's not until the next day that you're able to get up and have your first urine and everything. Speaking of urine, they will put a catheter in you. Yes, when you lay down after the anesthesia has been administered and you lay down, they're going to stick a catheter into you and that's how they're going to collect your urine for the first 24 hours, after. Once in recovery, they're going to come take out the catheter and try and get you to stand up and go use the restroom and make sure that you can pee and, do number 2 and everything without problems. All right, so now usually during that 24 hours that you're still numb and under the effects of the anesthesia, they would put a compression socks around your feet especially. And that's one thing I wanted to talk about that I don't think we all know of, right? They don't really tell you about the risks of blood clot. Your chances of getting a blood clot increases because the anesthesia keeps you in one place, right? So you've just had surgery. You are supposed to be walking around and making sure that your blood is circulating. If it's not circulating, you could get a blood clot. But then you can't really do all of that because your legs aren't working right now, right? You can't feel anything. You can't tell your legs to move. And so in that moment and in that time period, they normally would put compression socks around your legs just to get the blood flowing and keep the blood flowing. So that's something to be aware of and be mindful of in terms of risks that comes with having a C-section. Now, with peeing for the first time, girl, let me just give you a piece of advice, okay? Because something happened to me with my third birth, cesarean, and oh my gosh, I wish someone had told me that you should not hold too much pee in. Don't hold your pee in. Girl, see, at the slightest sensation of feeling like you want to go, please go. Please go. You have to remember that you're not completely recovered yet. So, and they just made like multiple cuts through your abdomen, your uterus, everything, right? So those organs need time to heal. You are not supposed to keep pee in for such a long time. I don't know what it was. I held in my pee. I felt like peeing before bed. And I was like, but it was one of those light pees. I'm like, oh, I'm good, right? I slept off. I woke up in excruciating pain. Oh my goodness. I was in so much pain that I felt like vomiting. It was painful. Oh, it was painful. And, I asked to go pee. And even while I was peeing, like I just felt, like spasms down there. And oh my gosh, it was so painful. It was the worst pain I had experienced in a long time. But that was as a result of holding so much pee in my bladder. So, a word of advice, please don't do it. Don't hold too much pee in, okay? Another thing to take note of is that you're going to be hunched over, because they just cut hopefully they cut you this way and not, the other way. But they've just made so many incisions in you that way. So you can't really sit up straight or stand up straight for a little while. So you're going to be hunched over. And that can actually make pumping a bit tricky. I say pumping because, my kids were in the NICU after birth. So I had to pump to give them milk. And pumping can be tricky. So with pumping, the type of pump I used, especially in the hospital, was the one that they give and provide at the hospital, right? That's the Medela Symphony pump. And honestly, unless you have an appropriate or proper breastfeeding bra to hold, or a pumping bra, I don't know what they're called again, but the bras that do a good job of holding the cups to your breasts to make sure that they stay and you're able to pump and the milk is able to flow in the right direction, then you might need to hold them in place and then bend over. And if that's the case, girl, that's not very it's not going to be very comfortable. So I remember struggling with that because I didn't have a proper bra and my milk wasn't even coming in like that. I was struggling so hard to make sure that the colostrum, that first few drops of milk doesn't go to waste. So, that would cause me to make sure that if the milk is gonna flow in the right direction and won't be wasted or dripping down. So, yeah. That was a fun little experience, but something to watch out for and be prepared for as you go for your C-section. Now I want to get into the risks of C-sections they don't tell you about. One of the risks is that you could get an infection. The lining of your uterus can get infected. The lining of your urinary tract can get infected, and the site of the incision can also get infected. So you run the risks of getting infections. Another risk is blood loss. You run the risk of losing more blood than normal. We all know that with childbirth comes bleeding, like you will bleed after childbirth. It's said that with vaginal birth, you lose about a half a quart of blood, but then with C-section, cesarean births, you lose about a whole quart of blood. So, you know, that's something to keep in mind, but you run the risk of having excessive blood loss. You also run the risk of having an adverse reaction to anesthesia. And usually you should kind of know, I mean, it depends on whether or not you've had surgery that required anesthesia in the past, but you know, that's something to think about, figuring out if you have any type of reaction to anesthesia. And I don't know how you would do that. I don't know how you would get that information beforehand, but know that you run the risk of having some type of reaction to the anesthesia. Another risk is you risk having complications with other pregnancies, future pregnancies. One common complication is the placenta previa, I believe, and this is where the placenta covers the opening of the uterus or the cervix, I believe. So yeah, these are just some common risks and complications that you should kind of be aware of and prepare for. So that's it, guys. That kind of concludes my things they don't tell you about cesareans video. So please let me know what other things you've experienced if you've had a C-section before, what other things you've experienced that people don't really talk about, or what things you've learned that you were surprised by. All right, guys, I'll talk to you guys in the next video. Bye.